Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Now today we are going to go over what I have read in the month of February. I have read a total of 8 books, well 7 books, and I'm currently reading the 8th, but it's only the 27th so I still got time. But we'll go over the books that I have read and I'll tell you what I think about them. Let's get started. Alright, so the first book that I read this month was Baby Teeth by Zoya Stage. Baby Teeth is a thriller story about a family of 3. It's Suzette is the mom, Alex is the dad, and Hannah is their 7-year-old daughter. Hannah has never spoken from when she was born until now. For Alex, Hannah is a perfect angel. For Suzette, she torments the absolute crap out of Suzette. And obviously Alex doesn't believe her. He doesn't believe when schools tell her what she's doing, anything like that. So it's Suzette trying to live her life with her husband and this basically like demon child. It was fine. Wasn't great. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. I just didn't like it. The tagline talked about it being similar to like The Omen, which I didn't get. Hannah just wasn't creepy enough. It was borderline, it was trying to be a horror book, but it really wasn't, and then it really wasn't a thriller because there was never really any twist. So it just didn't work for me. Like I said, 2 out of 5 stars. Next on my list, I read Becoming by Michelle Obama, and it was breathtaking. I knew going in that this book was going to be amazing, but I was bawling at the end. But reading it, well, one, I borrowed it, so I really want to go buy it for myself so that I can annotate in it, because some of the quotes that she had in there were just amazing. And reading it made me want to meet her more. Like, I already wanted to meet her and Barack, but like reading this book and understanding them more as humans instead of just like figures was so cool. And she's so articulate and describing her childhood growing up, meeting Barack and their relationship, getting to see kind of inside their relationship both as husband and wife, but then also as parents, was super interesting. But overall, it was just a phenomenal book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars because it just took my breath away. It was so good. Alrighty, next I have The People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. This book is about Poppy and Alex, and Poppy and Alex are best friends and they go on vacation every summer together. They went on 10 summer trips together, and then 2 years before the story actually takes place, something happens and they have not spoken since. Poppy she was a travel blogger, but then she got a job at a magazine, so she's a travel columnist. And she goes on these lavish vacations, but her heart's not in it. And she realizes one day she's just really unhappy. And so when she needs to write another story, she realizes the only person she wants to go on vacation with is Alex. So that's kind of where the story starts. We get to see them go back and forth, and it bounces back and forth between their vacations and currently. So you get to see kind of what happened. This was our book club pick for the month, and I picked it because it was Valentine's Day, it was a romance, so I was kind of just going with that. I didn't really expect too much. I'm not a big romance reader, but let me tell you. One, you can't see my annotations. This is the first time I've ever really annotated in a book, and I was just left and right, highlighting, underlining, writing in it. I mean, it's just, one, the parallels to this book and things that have happened in my life and are currently happening in my life are kind of scary. And even my friends in book club were like, Megan, be prepared. And I was like, oh, it'll be fine. I was also bawling at this book. But the lines in it for being kind of like, I don't want to say a cheesy romance because I feel like that's not fair to the book, but that's kind of the way it kind of comes off, as these like romance books are kind of like cheesy romances. Some of these lines in here, oh my God, they were so good. And clearly because I annotated, but man, this blew me away. It was 5 out of 5 stars for me. I cannot wait to reread this again at some point and just find even more lines that I love. And I'm excited because I have more Emily Henry on my TBR. So now I want to read them even more. Alrighty, next on my list I have In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. I read this because I'm a big true crime fan, and this is one of the most famous true crime books of all time. I did not like it. The way that he writes the book is much more fantasy than I thought it was going to be. I mean, there are conversations, you're reading conversations that happen with people. It reads almost like a narrative and not a true crime, in the sense of you're having full-fledged conversations with people who died, and there's no possible way that he would know what these people said. Like, even if the one person in the conversation is alive, you can't tell me that they knew word for word the exact conversation that they had. It was just very weird, and so much of the story is much more on the killers than it is the actual family, which bothers me a lot, just because 4 people of a whole family were slaughtered, and this book cares much more about the killers than it does the actual family. So, not my favorite. 2 out of 5 stars. I'm still not giving up on finding a really, really good true crime book. One of my favorites is And I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara. Again, that's like peak true crime for me. So that's the bar. So we'll see if I find anything that reaches that bar. Next, I read The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. This is the next installment, not the next installment, but the next book by Alex Michaelides, who wrote Silent Patient. I read Silent Patient last year and absolutely adored it. So when I found out he wrote another book, I immediately had to go buy it. It's about Mariana, and Mariana has just gone through a tragedy. She is a group therapist, so you kind of see her dealing with her own tragedy while also trying to help people with theirs, until she gets a call from her niece Zoe, and Zoe says that one of her best friends at Cambridge has been murdered. So Mariana comes up, and it delves into a detective story while also having like culty elements, because there's this Greek tragedy professor named Edward Focia, however you say it, who is like, he has his own little group of girls, all girls, which my red flag was like, ping, 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 ping. They're called the Maidens. And him and these girls meet on like a weekly, probably even more than weekly basis. And it's their intellectual group. And I was like, that makes sense. But you're kind of going along with the story, learning more about the group, the Maidens, trying to find the murderer, learning about all this creepy stuff that's going on at Cambridge. Also, Mariana is still dealing with the grief of her loss. So it was such a good book, and the twist. I've determined I'm a snob when it comes to thrillers. Like, if I don't have a gasp moment in a thriller, I'm not gonna like it. And there was so many gasp moments, and it was so good. I loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. Alrighty, next I read The Romanov Sisters, The Lost Lives of the Daughters of Nicholas and Alexandra. This was so good. I absolutely love learning about the Romanovs because I think they're such a tragic point and family of history, because what happened to them shouldn't have happened. They gave up. They were like, okay, we'll step back, just let us live our lives, and they were slaughtered, and it's so sad. But specifically learning about the daughters was so heartbreaking too, even before everything started to fall apart, because they were so sheltered, but at the same time, the country kind of ignored them because they weren't the son. They weren't going to be the heir. And so you get to see, it was a nice glimpse at their life, but also seeing Nicholas and Alexandra more as parents was really interesting, especially seeing the way, because Rasputin is barely mentioned in this book, which I loved. Like, don't get me wrong, I love learning about Rasputin because he's creepy as hell. But he was not the driving factor of this family, in terms of they had lives before him. They continued to have a life after he was dead. So getting to learn about them and not have him dominate their story was really interesting and really good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. If you like history, if you like World War I, this is a really, really good read. Alrighty, next on my list, I read The Overnight Guest by Heather Gudenkauf. This is a thriller. It starts off with Wiley, And Wiley is a true crime writer, and she is staying in the house where a horrific murder took place, and it's in the middle of nowhere. Like, can't remember where they say. They mention Nebraska a couple times. I think it's in Iowa, if I remember correctly, but it's in the Midwest. So when I say middle of nowhere, I mean middle of nowhere. It's like, I think they say it's a mile before the next neighbor. So middle of nowhere, and it's snowing heavily. So she's kind of locked in this cabin with this dog that she found, and she stumbles outside and she finds a little boy passed out in the front yard in the middle of the snow. So she takes the little boy in and she's trying to figure out who he is and all this stuff. And there's just mystery. So we're getting flashbacks to the murder that she's currently writing about, as well as an unknown perspective. So it's three different, the way to split up is it's Wiley's story, the flashbacks to the murder, and then this unknown perspective. And so you get to see different things happening. And it was okay. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. Wasn't my favorite. Again, I'm a snob when it comes to thrillers. There wasn't a gasp moment, but like more than that, there were just things that when you found out that it happened, it didn't make sense that that's what happened in terms of just the logistics behind it. And I know that there's like suspension of disbelief, but for this one, I just struggled to have that suspension. So it really didn't work for me. Like I said, 2 out of 5 stars. And the book that I'm currently reading is Pandora's Jar, Women in Greek Myths. I'm about halfway through this right now, and it is so good. It's about the misconceptions about women written into Greek mythology. So we're looking at Medusa and Pandora and Costa, Eurydice, Medea, Penelope, just women who have been portrayed in Greek myths and been portrayed in a not so flattering light, even when their circumstances, there's no reason why that they have been turned vilified in different scenarios. And so far it's been really, really good. So far I would say it's a 4 out of 5 star. It's a really easy read, and the way that Natalie Haynes writes, they read almost like essays, which I really enjoy. So each different character from Greek mythology is its own separate essay, and it makes it more digestible, and then also it just makes it more interesting to see her connections and to read her theories and to read her opinions on why, not only why it's wrong that these women are vilified, but why they're vilified in the first place. So it's a really, really good read so far. Alrighty, guys, that is all of the books that I have read in the month of February. I am looking forward to going into March. I did do my March TBR, so go ahead and check that out and keep following me along for more reading vlogs. We'll talk more about my TBRs. We'll talk more about just different books in general. I'm really loving this kind of like point in my life where I am really getting back into books, because there was such a long period of time where I wasn't in it. I think a lot of people go through that when they're younger. They love reading, then you kind of get into like the high school, college age where you're required to read books, and it's just not as fun anymore. And now that I'm out of that college age, I'm back in that love of reading. So feel free, leave a comment down below. Tell me what book you're loving right now, or what book you read in February that was your absolute favorite. Give this video a like, subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good day. Bye.